Today's JJ Redick podcast is brought to you by Belvedere Vodka. Produced in one of the world's longest-running distilleries, Belvedere Vodka is the world's finest all-natural vodka. Crafted by a collective of master distillers, Belvedere is made with non-GMO Polish rye, pure water, and no additives. Recognized for quality, Belvedere was named the ISC World Vodka Producer of the Year in 2015, 2016, and 2017. Enjoy a delicious summer cocktail with Belvedere Vodka today, and remember to always drink responsibly. By the way, earlier today, I was trying to explain to my 2-year-old that I had to go record a podcast, and he's like, "What are you doing, Dad? And I'm like, "I have to go do a podcast." He goes, "Podcast, Dad? Podcast?" So I pulled up our last mailbag one that I did, and this was like the lead off to that. This was the first read, and I'm like, it's my voice, clearly. And I'm like, Kai, what? Who is that? Who is that talking? He goes, "A man." And I was like, "Yeah. Does it sound like Daddy?" He goes, "No." I was like, oh, shit. Welcome to this week's episode of the JJ Redick podcast. We have a great guest for you today. First round pick of the Orlando Magic, Mo Bamba. Mo and I recorded this conversation in Dumbo, Brooklyn, in my neighborhood. And it was a lot of fun. We're going to get right to the convo as we cover a lot of stuff. All right, I'm gonna start this off with a little story. This is nonfiction. I did not make this story up, and I would love for any listeners to comment about what you think of the story, any possibilities, possible outcomes. So yesterday, I had a photo shoot. Do you read or use MrPorter.com? Have you ever heard of it?
No.
It's like an online men's website. It's a sort of a lifestyle brand. You can sell or buy clothing, home items, watches, everything. So they do like a journal. So I did a photo shoot for them yesterday, September issue, September 25th. And at the end of the shoot, they had set up a driver for me. So we come downstairs out of the apartment we were shooting at in Chelsea, and I knock on the door, and the guy kind of leans out, and he's like, "Are you JJ Redick?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So I'm like, "Hey, I got to put my bag," and they had given me a gift, so I got to put my bag and stuff in the back. So he's like, "All right." So he gets out of the car, he opens the trunk, and as I'm like leaning in to put my bag in there, and Kylie, my sister-in-law, and my wife, Kylie's twin is my wife, the three of us were like in the back. And so I put my stuff in the back, Kylie put her stuff in the back. And I was like, it smells kind of weird. It wasn't like a bad smell. Like it didn't smell like dog food or dog shit. It was just like a weird smell. And at the time I didn't think anything of it. So get in the car, we get from Chelsea to like Financial District. We're on the corner of Murray and Broadway, and Kylie is in the back seat. It's a bucket seat Escalade with the long wheelbase of the big trunk. And Kylie taps me on the shoulder. I turn around, and she's like pale as a ghost. And she's like, "There's a person in the back." And I'm like, "What? There's a body in the back?" And she's like, "No, there's a person in the back." So I glance over my shoulder, and there's like a blanket, like a big blanket and a cage or box. I'm not really sure because the blanket was covering it. And then there's like clearly something underneath the blanket. Yeah. At this point, it hadn't moved yet. And so Kylie's like, "Sir, can you please pull over?" So he pulled over on the corner there, and we jumped out of the car immediately. And Chelsea's kind of like doesn't know what's going on. She's like, "What's happening?" And I'm like, "Sir, as I was getting in the car, I noticed the blanket was moving. So I'm like, sir, you have something in the trunk of your car. Do you know what that is? Is there something in your trunk of your car? And he's like, no, I don't have anything back here. And I say, well, can I get my stuff out? So he pops the trunk, and I like kind of as fast as I can, because it's New York City. You don't know, like, I've seen this blanket move. I don't know what this is. Is it a python? Is it a robber? I don't know. So I grab my bag and coat, and I grab Kylie's bag and like kind of throw it on the sidewalk and jump back on the sidewalk. So the car is like facing, going directionally, like, sort of perpendicular to us. And I'm like, sir, I think there's a person in your back seat. And so he lifts the blanket up, but like towards the window, so that the blanket is facing up, so we couldn't see because we were on the sidewalk, perpendicular to the car, not behind the car. And he's like, no, there's nothing in here. There's nothing in here. And he closes the blanket back. And then he closes the trunk. And as he's like walking around to the front seat, a head pops up. No, this is not funny. There's a back of a female's head. She's blonde hair. There's a ponytail. And based on the size of the box or cage that this person is in, it's like either like a very small human or a child. And I'm like, we all saw it, right? So he drives off, and then Kylie now at this point is like, I'm like, are you sure? Was that a dog? Was that a dog with a very furry tail? Like what? And she's like, no. The reason I said there was a person is because I saw movement in my peripheral, out of my right eye. So I turned around, and the blanket was moving. So when I looked back, like half of a human face came out of the blanket. So I saw a woman's eyes, woman's face, woman's blonde hair, right? So we're like, all right. So we get in a cab, and thank God this didn't happen on the middle of the Brooklyn Bridge in 5 o'clock traffic. We're stuck there for 15 minutes in silence, knowing there's a body behind us. So like I called the car agency, and they acted like they didn't know what I was talking about. Then we called the police, and we haven't heard back from the police. The car agency wrote an email saying that they've suspended the driver because we canceled the ride because there was someone in his front seat, which is not what we said. I was very explicit that he was harboring some sort of female under a blanket in a cage or box in his trunk. So possible sort of scenarios here. I think best case for everyone involved is that maybe his sister or his cousin or maybe a girlfriend or wife needed a ride across town.
It was bring your kid to work
and they didn't want to pay for an Uber or a taxi, right? That's probably best case scenario. And then you from there you go darker, And this is not funny, but like child abduction, human trafficking. Like Chelsea's dead serious texting me today, and she's like, I'm calling the FBI tip line and I'm opening a claim. This is serious. And I mean, I don't know what to make of it. It definitely was not a dog. I will say that. It was a human being in the backseat of his car under a blanket in some sort of box or cage. That's my story.
This was yesterday.
This was less than 24 hours ago. I mean, I've told the story now like 3 or 4 times, and I still like I got like goosebumps on my hair. It was disturbing. Anyways,
well, that's New York. That's New York for you.
This is going to be a fun episode. We've got Mo Bamba, currently of the Orlando Magic, 6th pick in the NBA draft back in June. Spent 1 year at University of Texas. Mm-hmm. Grew up in Harlem.
Yep.
Though you did not attend high school in New York City.
I did about.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you about this. So you spent some of the summer training with Joe, right? With Joe Embiid.
Well, yes, but no.
Okay.
He was just coming out to LA when I was leaving LA to start like my individual workouts.
And there was an internet video that went viral. I think, was it you that he dunked on and it said "Welcome to the NBA"?
Nah, that wasn't me. That was somebody else. I don't know.
No, I'm pretty sure it was you.
It's a lot of different kids out here walking around looking like me, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's terrible. We talk about this. It always comes up. Like we're always like you're like one play away from getting gift, from just becoming some internet meme.
Yeah.
I'm even cognizant now of like, this is some advice for you, by the way. I'm even cognizant now of my facial expressions on the bench because like of the Alonzo Mourning gif. That's a great one. The Costas Kufos from this past year. That was another good one. Just be cognizant of like staring off into the distance, laughing, shaking your head in disbelief. Try to avoid all of those things on the bench.
It's actually funny that you say that because whenever someone gets dunked on and the opposing benches there, I always look for their reaction. Right. And they're always just like...
That's the first thing. You got to be... Oh!
Yeah. There's always like...
Somebody always inevitably stands up.
Yeah.
You've been a pro essentially for, roughly 6 weeks. Going back to the sort of pre-draft process, as you've sort of reflected on that at all, did you learn anything? Did you learn anything about yourself? Did you learn anything about the NBA?
I just learned a lot about what goes into it, to be honest. My pre-draft was nothing short of spectacular, simply because of the gains that I made as not only a player, but as a person. Like, I've learned so much about just like, the game and the spacing and, the pace of it. And you don't always want to go 100% speed. Sometimes you want to slow it down to about 50 and then quick burst to about 75. And I learned a lot about it.
Do you feel like as you were sort of doing the interview process with teams, did you feel like teams were playing games with you, like you were being misled one way? Or maybe you were doing a little bit of gamesmanship too?
No. So...
Because there was reported that you said to Memphis, like, I'm not coming. I'm not going to come work out for you. I'm not going to give you physical.
Well, it wasn't quite as disrespectful as that.
Okay.
Oftentimes when, like, guys don't, submit their medicals or, they refuse to work out for a team, it's looked at as just like, oh, this, like, prima donna jerk. Like, why wouldn't he want to work? Why wouldn't he want to play for any organization? But to me, it was more so about fit than going as high as possible. And where I landed in Orlando is probably one of the best case scenarios for myself.
I always find it fascinating. Like, everybody always talks about sort of this scenario, where this team's picking 7th. I'm in the 7 to 10 range. I don't want to end up there.
Yeah.
But no one ever talks about you're a lottery pick. You're going to be a lottery pick. But maybe like the best fit is at like 26. Was there, like, for me, I remember watching the playoffs in 2006. So this was like 2 months before the draft, and thinking to myself, like, God, if I could end up on the Phoenix Suns and play for Mike D'Antoni. 13 years later, still hasn't happened. But like that was like sort of my thing, and like it just wasn't a possibility. Was there any teams, like, you can say this because you're not dogging any teams, but was there any teams that were like way ahead of where you projected that you were like, that'd be nice to play for?
There were a couple of organizations where it was just like, oh, it'd be interesting to see if it wasn't more so like if I'd fall back into whatever pick they had. It was more so like, what are they willing to do to get me? Are they willing to trade up? Are they willing to, how interested are they in me? And as time went on, teams really tried, but I didn't really understand the logistics of it. I still to this day don't. And I think that's something that I'd have to learn down the road.
Well, I think one of the transitions when you get done with college and you become a professional is that you're actually allowed to work on your game.
Yeah.
It's actually hard when you're a college student. People don't realize this, but it's actually hard to sort of like work with your coaches and find the time and not be in study hall or not be in class.
Yeah.
And like, have you found that to be sort of exciting? You're now able to just go to the gym and literally just work on your game, work on your body.
Yeah, and that's one thing that people don't really understand that are on the outside looking in. Like, they see like you're on a college campus and you have a gym right there, but there's a lot of stuff you have to do day to day. Like, I mean, you've been in college way longer than I was. And like, there's a lot of stuff between study hall, between meeting with different teachers, meeting with different professors. It's hard. But I think to answer your question from earlier, the best thing about pre-draft is like I've literally learned how to become a pro and how to get into my own regimen of training and bettering myself as an athlete.
Do you have an idea yet? Because it took me like 4 or 5 years to really figure it out in terms of having that structure in place. But have you thought about, or do you have sort of a general outline of sort of the structure you want to have in place for like this is what I'm going to do on a practice day. This is what I'm going to do on a game day. I mean, you haven't experienced it yet, but have you started to think about these ideas?
I have not actually, and that's something that I'm probably going to get with the coaches and get with other players to see what they've been doing. One person that's been really helpful and just like kind of laying out what my rookie season is going to look like, minus a few things, is John Isaac.
Okay.
He's a guy who's always around, I can call him literally right now, he'll pick up and we can just chop it up all day about like what to expect and, what are different like, pitfalls that I shouldn't, what to not do, what to look out for and different things. And our team is just so unique because we're a young team, but we have like guys who are like in that, like our oldest guy is probably DJ. He's 32, which isn't old at all. Right. And then we have like this range of guys who are like in that 27 to 30 range or 26 to 30 range. We don't really have much guys in between 23 and 26. And then we have all the guys who are like 20 to
young.
20. Yeah, they're like young. So it's
we have a pretty interesting now make an argument that Nick Vucevic is a veteran, which is crazy. Because I think my seventh year, I was one of the older guys on the team my last year in Orlando, and Nick had just gotten traded after his rookie year in Philly, and he was like, it was his second year in the league, and he's not an old head.
I mean,
he's a vet.
You're just old, man. I don't know what to tell you. You're just old.
I've had a hard time this summer grappling with the fact that I'm 34. It just sounds shitty, You can still make an argument at 33 that you're like not in your mid 30s. You know what I mean? Like mathematically speaking. But now, 34 is mid 30s.
You're in there.
I'm in there.
You're in there.
I'm in there. Have you spent any time? I spent 5 seasons with Steve Clifford. He was our head assistant when I was with Stan. Have you had a chance to spend any time with him?
Oh yeah, I spent a lot of time with Coach Cliff, and he's an awesome dude. And I just love the way how he was like fully transparent from day one of how he envisioned me being on his team. We sat down at various dinners. He even gave me like a quiz, believe it or not. I thought I was done with school, but Coach Cliff, I think he used to teach back in the day.
Yeah, he was.
He was a high school teacher, and he
back when they had corporal punishment. He used to smack the kids with rulers.
Hey, come on, don't come on, man. That's my coach. But he gave me this quiz, and he was just giving me like different. There's one thing Coach is really big on, this the terminology. He wants the whole team to be speaking the same language. That way, it mitigates any confusion what's going on out there on the floor. And it was just like this. It's the simplest things to him, but it took me like It took me about 2 to 3 days in summer league to like really learn like our drop coverage.
It only took 2 to 3 days. That's crazy. I think to me, especially for a big, like the biggest challenge. So like your position now, like in the modern NBA, the 5 is sort of the defensive anchor. And really the best guy at that, in this transition into the modern NBA and modern NBA defense was KG. Because he was so vocal. He knew all the coverages. He knew all the calls. I mean, the best defensive bigs I've played with aren't necessarily like the greatest one-on-one defenders or greatest shot blockers. They're the guys that are the most vocal
on team defense.
Exactly. Exactly. No offense, man, but that's a huge responsibility.
I'd say, well, I don't really haven't played my first NBA game, but as far as like what I've learned from summer league and hearing from different people, I think like playing team defense at this level as a 5-man is a lot simplified. Because at Texas, like I was trying to the way how we'd guard ball screens was we would try to blow it up and just have the big be there as long as he needed to, and then get back to yours. And it was just so much responsibility between communicating to the guard, staying as long as you needed to, making sure he doesn't get downhill. And now you're just in a drop coverage where you don't have to worry about the guy coming off the ball screen, and you're just making sure the roller doesn't get below you. And
I think the biggest thing in that coverage for the 5, and not like when I first got in the league, like teams were still showing with like hedging or What did you just call it?
Drop coverage.
No, the one before that where you're like on the ball.
Blow it up.
Yeah,
you blow it up. Yeah,
and so blowing it up, right? So like when I first got in the league, like 4s were still doing that, and most 4s now for the most part, are in a drop as well.
Yeah.
Or, in the last 2 years, really, like now, everybody pretty much just switches everything.
Yeah, like I went to some of the Black Op runs yesterday, and Melo was like you can just drop it, just drop it, and I was like, all right, let's do it.
It's totally different.
Yeah.
This whole like notion of like the modern NBA 5.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I think is so attractive about a player like you.
Mm-hmm.
Jaren Jackson, going back, Karl Anthony Towns, Porzingis, he's kind of maybe a 4.
Yeah.
JoJo
Yeah.
is just this like, we've talked about on the pod before, but like this unicorn notion and like being able to do all these different skills.
Yeah.
Like I'm curious in like 10 years, because the league changes, but like in 10 years, like if all pans out well for you, what does a 29-year-old Mo Bamba in his prime, like what does that skill set look like?
Oh man, it looks.
Are you running pick and rolls like as the ball handler?
Honestly, people won't believe me when I say this, but in my early AAU days, well, I wouldn't say early. In my mid AAU days, I played on a 16 under team, and our point guard went down, and I was literally bringing the ball up the floor. So 29-year-old Mo Bamba may be bringing the ball up the floor, calling plays. But honestly, I don't. To me, it's the future is just so. It's so distant to me, and I'm just worried about the now. Oftentimes oftentimes early on when I really came on the scene as a national name and a national prospect as a high schooler, the word that was tossed around with me was potential.
Yeah.
It was potential. And it got to a point where I hated potential, because it really meant like you had the skills and you embodied like the different, characteristics as an elite basketball player, but you weren't really getting out there and you weren't really producing. And one thing that I really took pride on going into like the end of my high school career for AAU and for college was production, turning that potential into production. And as coaches, I really used our coaches as the bridge between the potential and the production.
That's a really interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah.
And as someone who's never been called a player with potential,
Yeah.
I've never actually thought about that. Like how that could actually be like a negative thing. And it actually makes sense.
Yeah.
And I love the way you said that, like turning potential into productivity.
Exactly.
So in terms of productivity, like what are sort of your expectations for your rookie year?
It's funny that you asked this, because if you would have asked this 3 months ago in pre-draft, I would have just been just this and that and that and that. But as time goes on, honestly what I want to do is win.
Yeah.
And this is it's not only for me, it's for the city of Orlando. Those guys down there are crazy about me, and they really believe in me. And one thing that I can do right away to show my appreciation to the city and to our organization is win. Do whatever I can do to win. But obviously there's definitely individual goals that I have for myself, as far as being the best version of me. And the best version of me is
greatness, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad you answered that question that way. I was trying to trap you, and you didn't fall for it. Dang. No, because I think, look, like production-wise, like I stopped setting those sort of goals for myself, and I can go back to college or, even my rookie year. I remember having a conversation with my agent at the time, and like I'm like, dude, Greg, like I'm gonna average like 18 a game, and we're gonna make the playoffs. And
this
I
was
averaged
you as a rookie.
Yeah, this is like before my rookie year, and I averaged 14 minutes per game, and had almost as many DNPs in a suit behind the bench as games played. And it still took me like probably another year to really kind of grasp the notion. Yeah. And it's really like it's the Carol Dweck like growth mindset notion, but it's this idea sort of being the best version of yourself. And if that is ultimately what you reach, then based on potential, based on work, based on skills, that most likely will equate to greatness. And that's ultimately, like, you can talk about numbers, but greatness, sort of is defined by great numbers, and those will sort of take care of themselves.
Yeah. Well, that's actually what I wanted to ask you, because if you look at you talk about numbers, if you look at your numbers throughout your years, like every year you've gotten better. What was like, my question is, what was your mindset going through all of these different, like, especially early on in your career?
Well, it's interesting because the mindset has changed. So initially, like I just said, like I didn't think it was going to be easy, and I didn't think I was going to be a superstar. Let me just say that right away. But I thought I would be a productive player right away.
That's that Duke arrogance. No.
Yeah, exactly. It is the Duke arrogance. Yeah, it's 2-time National Player of the Year. I'm just kidding. I can get a joke in. All right. No, but then like my third year, for example, was really like the first year that I played.
Yeah.
And that year I was like trying to survive. Like I was literally like, I might not be in the league, 18 months from now.
Yeah.
And then each year, I think what I've tried to do is like, number one, work, and number two, work smarter. And as the opportunities have presented themselves, i.e., having a larger role my 7th year in Orlando, and then my 8th year becoming a full-time starter for the first time, and then last year being in a tremendous situation. Like I've always felt like you have to adapt year to year, but like if you work and then you get older and you learn to work smarter, when those opportunities sort of present themselves, like you're able to sort of take advantage of that. Yeah. But like I hope that you do not have the same career arc that I have. I mean, you have like superstar potential. So I think for me, my mindset, at probably like in that third year, I just sort of had the mindset like, I want to maximize the best version of me. Like, how do I become the best version of me? And it's still, look, that was my mindset my third year, and it took till like my 9th or 10th year to get there. It's a slow process, man. Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Mo. Produced in one of the world's longest-running distilleries, Belvedere Vodka is the world's finest all-natural vodka. Crafted by a collective of master distillers, Belvedere is made with non-GMO Polish rye, pure water, and no additives. Recognized for quality, Belvedere was named the ISC World Vodka Producer of the Year in 2015, 2016, and 2017. Belvedere's unmatched quality reminds me of one of the greatest teams in the history of the NBA, the 1982-83 Philadelphia 76ers, featuring legends of the game like Dr. J, Moses Malone, and Maurice Cheeks, just to name a few. The 76ers won the championship that year in absolutely dominating fashion. Over the course of their storied history, the 76ers have always played a brand of basketball of unparalleled quality, just like Belvedere Vodka. Enjoy a delicious cocktail with Belvedere Vodka today. Remember to always drink responsibly and trust the process. Let's talk about Spartan. With over 60 races around the country, it's easy to find one to commit to as long as you leave your excuses behind. Spartan is an obstacle course racing company with races for every athletic ability and skill level. Starting with the 3+ mile, 20+ obstacle sprint, all the way to the 12+ mile, 30+ obstacle beast, any racer can find what's right for them. You work hard, you push yourself through the weekday grind with grit, discipline, and determination. Bring that same grit and determination to a Spartan race near you. Let it propel you through hills, climbs, and carries. Will it be easy? No. Will it be worth it? Absolutely. Sign up for the best weekend meeting of your life and race alongside fellow Spartans like Randy Moss. Excuses don't live here. Find your Spartan race today. Visit Spartan.com/JJ for an exclusive offer to find a race near you and view training and nutrition tips. All right, back to my conversation with Mo Bamba. What would happen if things didn't happen quickly for you? Like, how would you react to that? Like, what is your...
Yeah. Like, I wasn't always the sure thing for basketball. Like, I always had to work for what I've always got. And there's been times where I worked out and played and haven't seen like things translate right away. But patience is one of the biggest things that I've learned as early as not even high school, middle school. Being able to leave the house at the age of 13, 14 years old and sort of experience things on your own. Like you realize that like not a lot of things change overnight. Not a lot of things may change over a year, but you just got to stick to it and just, find your regimen and just believe in your work. You mentioned not only working hard, but working smart, but you want to do both of those, but at the same time, you want to believe in what you work on.
And that can honestly, and I'll say this because I've experienced it, and I watch a lot of players in the NBA who the work is not the problem.
Yeah.
Like Nick Stauskas is the best example. Like that guy is a gym, like the definition of a gym rat.
Yeah.
He works his butt off. He gets his shots up. He takes care of his body. Yeah. He believes in his game. And sometimes it's just about being in the right situation. Yeah. I think Nick is an NBA player. Yeah. He's a rotational NBA player, maybe a starter someday. I don't know. I don't want to ever put a cap on a guy. But like that's an example of like it's not just about the work. It's some of it is like being in the right situation.
Yeah.
Which sometimes is out of your control.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about, sort of being, I guess, a late bloomer, late riser in high school rankings. I don't know your whole sort of high school experience, but I'm curious about, being one of the poster childs in your class for this like one and done era.
Yeah.
And I was the last draft. My draft was the first draft, I should say, where no high school players could come out. What was your experience? I'm using air quotes here. What was your experience in amateurism?
It was unique because I wasn't like I mentioned, I always wasn't the sure thing for basketball. Like when I moved out of New York to go to New Hampshire, that was purely an academically driven decision. It was for school. It was a small school, all boys, 200. I think my 8th grade year was 230 boys, all boys, middle of nowhere, no phones. Food was not the greatest. And, I just wanted a different scenario. I wanted something new. I wanted a breath of fresh air. And that was just so I can be a better student, so I can push myself. And then I think my 9th grade year, I think I grew from 6'5" to about 6'7". And that's when I was like, oh, maybe I can do something with this basketball. And I went to a new AAU team that was more competitive. And kind of that national spotlight was there, and now it was just a matter of just what do you do with it now? And I'd say it wasn't until my 10th grade year that's when I really started to come on the scene as this this national name, because I graduated from Cardigan. I ended up going to Westtown School, where it was an academically driven. It wasn't as much academically driven decision because I knew the basketball played a national schedule there, but it was the first time in my life where I was like, I'm really gonna give this basketball thing like a shot. And I went to Westtown, and I remember playing in the Bullets tournament, which was I wouldn't say a national, it was more of a regional thing, but it was East Coast teams, and we played well. And we ended up winning, and I remember a guy who goes by the name of Evan Daniels, he gave me my first interview or whatever, and after that it was I got a few schools calling in and kind of just burst out into the national scene. But as far as amateurism in college, honestly I had no problem with it. I enjoyed my time in college. Obviously one big difference from college to now as far as amateurism and being a professional is the people you meet. Because there's a lot of people you technically can't meet when you're in college, and it's just while I was in college, I was just all right, there'll be a different time to meet that guy.
Right.
But now it's just you're meeting the who's of the world, and you're realizing that this kid from Harlem has a lot of things in common with this Fortune 500 CEO, and it's just the networking aspect of it is just awesome.
It's amazing the opportunities, the doors that have opened, the people, the interesting people that you can meet because of basketball.
That was really honestly the most interesting part of pre-draft for me, was the meeting the new people.
Yeah. Would you have gone, if you were allowed to, would you have gone to the NBA, entered the NBA draft out of high school?
I got this question about 3 or 4 times, and I honestly didn't know how to answer it, but I think it was very situational. Coming out of high school, there was definitely a lot of things I needed to work on. And I think college did a great job of just poking at that, and just sharpening the different tools. But if you think about like the development of the NBA and how like you mentioned, like I mentioned earlier that I learned how to become a professional during pre-draft. Like imagine if I learned that a whole year before. Right. And I think I think I would have been in a completely different. I would have been 2 years in, and I would have been a completely different player.
The last time I went on Bill Simmons' podcast, at the very end of like an hour and 15-minute session, I went on a little bit of a rant about this. But I really believe there's way more value as the individual, as a player, as a potential professional athlete, in getting the proper training, the proper nutrition, the proper medical care at 17 or 18, and spending a year in some sort of farm system, the G League, whatever it may be, than going to college and playing for a year. Coach K used to always talk about sort of unpacking your bags when he would bring in sort of high level recruits, guys that maybe were only going to stay a year or two. Did you feel like you unpacked your bags in Austin?
I had
or did you have one foot out the door?
No. So when I first came in, the biggest thing I regret about college is not committing earlier.
Okay.
And like I say that, and I'm not trying to be cheesy, and I'm not trying to steal the hearts of people down in Austin, but I wish I committed down there earlier, simply so I can start the clock and start getting things going. But one thing that I took pride on doing as soon as I got down there, because I got down there a little late because I had to graduate and finish high school, was just building those relationships. Like everyone knew in the back of their mind that I was going to be out of the door in a year, but I tried to like convince my teammates that, listen, like I was like, the now is more important than the later, and I really care about this university. I wouldn't be here wasting anyone's time if I wasn't. And I think after about a couple of weeks, guys started to realize, he was like, man, Mo was one of us. And I remember Snoop, current Roach, he I think someone asked him about the NBA or something like that, and it was some reporter after the game, and he was like, damn, he like looked at him, he was like, the NBA? Like, why would I have any comments or be worried about the NBA when Mo hasn't said a thing about the NBA since he's gotten here?
Right. And
I think that really radiated to all my teammates, and we all started to care a little bit more.
I'm sure that was important for you to hear as well, that your teammates noticed that you were sort of fully engaged in the now, in the present. Did you, at any point in time in your time in Austin, have Torchy's tacos?
I actually did not enjoy Torchy's that much.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of the JJ Redick podcast. Our time with Mo is over. How did you not? That doesn't even make sense.
It was okay. We used to get
It's like the Jason Sudeikis comment. Oh, the American flag is overrated.
We used to get
Torchy's tacos.
We used to get Torchy's like catered to us.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't the same.
It wasn't as fresh.
Yeah, it wasn't as fresh. But next time I go down to Austin, I will go down and try some Torchy's.
Torchy's tacos. LA, great taco scene.
Yeah.
Austin, incredible taco scene. New York, have not found it yet.
No, you got
any Rex. I know it's out there.
It's
out there.
It's there.
Any Rex, please hit me up on Twitter. I need a couple good taco places on the East Coast. And I maybe have already ranted about this, but can we please get breakfast taco culture in New York City? Like,
it's kind of odd that we don't.
I have breakfast tacos at my house every morning. It's scrambled eggs, it's bacon or sausage. I throw a little cheese on there, some avocado, and some hot sauce. And I definitely grill and toast my flour tortillas. But like, you can't get that at any place in New York City. I don't get it.
Well, New York has such like a wide like range of different foods. Like, one thing that drove me crazy in Austin, I remember like trying to like, I remember driving around endless like hours and wasting time in my actual life trying to find a good Chinese food restaurant in Texas, and it's just non-existent. Like, it just wasn't the case. And then we tried the same thing in LA when I lived there for about 3 months, and it was just like couldn't find it. And
Couldn't find good Chinese food?
I couldn't find good Chinese food in LA.
Wow.
But and you can't find good barbecue
In LA.
in LA.
Yeah, I don't dispute that.
Yeah. So it's just like everywhere has their little like, it's missing something. I thought New York was pretty well rounded though.
No breakfast tacos.
Well,
Yeah, actually, there's a taco place that opened around the corner from my apartment. Literally, I probably walk 70 feet, take a right, walk another 40 feet, and it was open I was starving last night,
Yeah.
and I was open last night at like 10:15, and I went over there, and it disappointed.
Yeah.
I was disappointed.
on behalf of New York, I'm sorry.
All right. Well, next time you're in Austin, you're gonna go to an actual Torchy's Tacos.
Yes.
Not catered where they drive it over and you eat it 30 minutes later. And you're gonna get the pork taco, the brisket taco, the trailer trash taco, the fried chicken with the
Trailer trash. Did you just hear what you just
fried chicken taco, and they put the queso in the taco, and then you're also gonna get the queso.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
You said earlier that your reason for leaving Harlem and going to boarding school
Yeah.
was academic.
Yeah.
You may not know the answer to this, but I'm very curious to ask someone who grew up in New York City, was a top 10 pick. You may not even know this, but you are the highest draft pick for a New York City kid since Lamar Odom. You're the first top 10 pick for a New York City kid since Kemba Walker in 2011. It's been nearly 20 years since someone was drafted in the top 6 that was a New York City kid. When I was growing up,
Yeah.
New York City hoops was like the Mecca.
Yeah.
It was Kenny Anderson, Stephon Marbury, Jesus Shuttlesworth. Wait,
That was a movie.
Oh, that was a movie.
That
But what, in your opinion, is just all the kids? Is the talent less, or are all the kids just going to private schools and boarding schools?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that as well. But Cole Anthony is about to ruin all of my accolades as far as all of that, because that kid is the goods.
Yeah.
You guys will see. Time will tell. But I think it's more of a thing of a lot of guys are going to different boarding schools because they get that national exposure. But at the same time, like, I was just talking to this kid who's a rapper about just our block. And I was just saying, like, my block, my area in New York where I'm from, just that small, like, percentage of New York is so talented, but no one really, like, does anything with that talent. And I think what it's become more of a tale of was the amount of structure you have around it so you can maximize that talent. Because the talent is there. It's just a matter of just, like, who's there to sort of, help you, not fall into the different pitfalls that a New York City Harlem kid, unfortunately falls into.
So you're saying if there isn't the sort of structure and resources available to keep kids that stay in New York on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, and it's a lot of it is on the kid, is on the mindset. There's this saying, like, you can take the kid out the hood, but you can't take the hood out of the kid. And it's true.
I use it different. I use it different, It's something about you can't take the kid out of the South. That I can't remember.
I mean, it's true, but, like, what makes, like, those kids who get out so special is the rarity and how many actually make it out.
There was one question on here that I actually thought about today, and it was the most frequent reason why vets roll their eyes at rookies.
Oh, yes.
Which leads to a larger question of, like, your expectations about being in the NBA, not stuff on the court. And that's relationships, lifestyle, travel, all the resources, all the stuff that comes with being a pro. And I'm curious if you have like concerns, just like specific concerns that you have as an individual about what this next step in your career is?
Yeah. I wouldn't even say it's a concern because I know what I'm signing up for, and this is something that I wanted for most of my life. But one thing that kind of, it's just like, that's going to be a grind, and I know it's going to be a grind, is the 82 games. Like, you have to be in, like, I was at this run, the Black Ops run. It's really popular. A lot of pros show up to it.
This is the, hold on, I'm going to interrupt you.
Yeah.
This is the runs that are at the Lifestyle Gym on 42nd.
Yeah.
That constantly show up on House of Highlights. Shout out Omar and shout out Chris Brickley.
So yeah, I was at the runs, and there's a lot of pros just poking their heads through there, and I kept picking their brains about, like, I was talking to D'Angelo Russell, and I was like, what did you, like, your rookie season, like, what was that like? What were your pitfalls? And he was like, man, I played with Kobe. Like, I don't think a lot of people can say that as a rookie. And but he went on to say, like, a lot of different stuff. But one thing, like, that I've heard before from other people, but that he kind of reiterated, was the 82 games grind. Like, we were watching someone shoot, like, shooting a lot of shots. And he was like, man, I don't know if that kid is gonna want to, shoot that many shots for a span of 82 games. And because you make some, but you miss a lot. And he was just, the grind of the 82 games is the one thing. It's
essentially
that
3
concerns.
college seasons.
Yeah.
It's basically 3 college seasons.
Yeah.
The only thing is you don't get 4 or 5 days in between games. This is what I was saying earlier about having, like, a structure in place. And you probably won't figure it out your rookie year, and that's fine. But the most important thing is that you have some routine. And I can remember my rookie year, I was living alone in Florida, and I would, like, forget to eat, or I wouldn't have time to eat before the game, and I'd have, like, a foot-long meatball sub from Subway in the arena, like, 45 minutes before the game. Like, that's not going to improve my performance. Come on, that's terrible.
It works for JoJo. He's eating, like, a double cheeseburger.
We have so much food available to us for the sandwich. So, like, that to me is the biggest thing. Like, the grind is the biggest adjustment. And the other thing, and I wish I had great vets. I wish, looking back, that I had asked them more questions. But I think that's probably most young people who are either, like myself, insecure or scared, or, like myself, thought they already knew everything.
Now, how do you ask questions without being annoying?
That's actually a great question. Yeah. So this year, like, Justin Anderson, he probably asked me 375 questions, and most of them were great questions. And I was like actually happy to answer them. Yeah. And as the season progressed, and, like, Justin would ask me questions, I remember thinking to myself, like, there's a couple guys on the team that, like, haven't asked me a question all season. I'm like, did I waste that opportunity? You know what I mean? Like, there's an opportunity there. Like, DJ's a Texas guy. Like, you should pick his brain. Yeah. Like, Vooch, who is your position, like, you should pick his brain. Like, those are sort of the guys off the top of my head on your team where you just ask them stuff. So that to me was like really eye opening. That I didn't. Maybe guys don't like me. I don't know. I feel like I've been in this long enough to provide at least some insight to this sort of thing. Yeah. I'm going to give you the answer to that question, though, that was emailed over to me about what causes vets to roll their eyes at rookies the most. And that is actually a very easy one to answer. Yeah. And that is being disrespectful. And the easiest way to describe being disrespectful is, as a rookie, being late, or even, like, showing up like 20 minutes before shoot around, or 20 minutes before practice, being the first one out of the gym. That's a no-no. Here's another one. Like, disrespecting the trainers. You see, everybody in an organization has a job and a role, and everybody's time is valuable, and you have to understand that you have to respect everyone else's time. And so, my biggest piece of advice to you is, like, take care of your body first. Get your work on the court, but make sure you always, always, always leave enough time to take care of your body. That's probably the biggest thing. I do want to ask you though about this is maybe I'm getting old, although I probably am guilty. Chelsea did record a few workout videos of me when I was in Austin, and she posted them on my Instagram, or I posted them on my Instagram. So I did do it once or twice. I'll admit to that. I'm not a saint. But this whole subculture that exists now in the NBA of posting workout videos. Not even like now it's not even workout videos. It's like highly produced workout videos with like songs in the background and like slow-mo and like guys like with their shirts off and sweat dripping off their chest. Can you explain it to me? Is this I'm just a different generation? Like what is going on here?
Well, there's two ways you can go about it. This is just the book of Mo. This is how I think people. This is how I think there is. There's two ways to go about it. There's two types of people. There's a person who's kind of like an attention junkie who like posts those videos themselves, and it's just like them just in the gym, like just trying to show off that they're in a gym. Like, we get it. Like, you're in a gym, you're working, you're supposed to be working. I'm happy for you. And then there's another type of person who doesn't post a video themselves, but like the people who they're working with, because you got to get out and we live in a day and age where like, you know, you want the exposure and you want to be known as like, you know, the best guy for something, and you want to produce something that's eye-catchy and you want to get clients. And you know, when you're not posting it but someone else is posting it of you, then I guess that's fair game.
I partially agree on the second part of it. Okay. Because I do think, and I said this on the mailbag pod, like for a lot of these workout guys that are posting videos where the player's not posting it themselves, I get that part of it. And the guys are promoting their business, right? But don't you, I don't know, to me, like they're only, they're training NBA players. Yeah. I think NBA players all talk to each other. Yeah. Like, whatever happened to word of mouth?
Yeah, but seeing is believing. Like,
okay, so my argument to that is that the first thing you said, the attention grabbers, the whatever, look at me people, they're saying, well, I'm not posting the video, but I know if I go and train with this guy, he's going to post the video.
Well, that's not always.
And then I'm not guilty of posting the video.
Well, that's not always the case. That's not always the case. Like, oftentimes, like, you get some guys, like, I remember at first I thought it was the weirdest thing. Like, I would never want to, like, have someone else watching my moves and seeing what I'm working on. It's just like, I'm going to use these moves against you. I don't want you to be, like, studying. Because if somebody that, you know, the guy that I'm competing against that I've been watching for a while, like, say he's working on his up and unders, his you know, shuffle step up and unders or whatever, like, I'm going, like, last year in the Black Ops, Enes Kanter was going up against Nick Richards, and I wasn't in the city. I wasn't able to go up against to go to those different runs. But I'm watching, like, Enes, like, he kept doing, like, the same move. Like, he kept getting Nick Richards, who goes to Kentucky, to get off his feet and jump. And he literally, like, I just watched that, and I was just like, all right, this is the move that he's gonna go to. And, like, now I know, like, now I know what to expect. Like, I don't want other people to do that, to study my game like I'm studying their games. And it was a little alarming for me at first, but after a while, it turns into I kind of want to have it on film to see what I'm working on, to see how I look, see if it looks game speed. And then two, I guess, is just helping out the brand that you're working with.
All right. I like that. I do like that. I would say, though, how do I word this nicely? In theory, couldn't I post a video, highly produced or not, of me working out in a gym?
Highly produced.
And I could do that over the course of, say, 3 months during the summer, and I could do that once every, like, 7 to 10 days. Yeah. And then
you're posting it yourself.
Yeah, or someone's posting it for me, but these videos are going out once every 7 to 10 days strategically. And everybody's like, wow, that guy's working hard this summer.
Well,
He's
no,
really good.
Well, no.
Meanwhile, I'm in Mykonos at a club. You don't think that happens?
It probably
does.
It happens. I'm
not naming names, but I know it happens.
It probably does. It honestly probably does. I don't know anyone who does that.
So my point is this: like, so all those guys that post videos, like the trainers, like, I respect the hustle, man.
Yeah.
Like, I respect those guys are working their butts off to build a brand, to build a business.
Yeah.
I respect that. I don't have a problem with that. I guess my problem more is on the player side, and for one, what you're saying, like you're stealing my secrets.
Yeah.
Number two, it's self-indulgent and attention grabbing.
Yeah.
And number three is what you said at the very beginning, and that's just, this is what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, this is what I love. Like, I don't know. Do you think that maybe, I don't know. Do you think that maybe fans appreciate it though? Like,
yeah, that's exactly
there's
what
an
I
element
was
of
say.
that.
Well, yeah. So I followed De'Aaron Fox on Instagram, and he was saying, like, it turned into a criticism how he doesn't post workout videos because everyone does it. And he was like, I remember him posting a story, and he was like, I guess I got to post a workout video to show you guys that I've been working in the offseason, even though Summer League wasn't a clear indication of it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, how twisted is that?
Yeah. I guess here's another thing I would say in defense of X player, the X, Y, or Z player. If you're a young guy and you want to have a reputation as being a hard worker, that does not happen overnight. That literally takes
At all.
years
Yeah.
to build a great reputation in this league.
Yeah.
And you know, in a young player's mind, maybe a shortcut to building a reputation is to just have a lot of highly produced videos out on the web.
It's eye-catching. I don't know what to say, man.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to explore this with every guest from now on. It's just so fascinating.
Everyone's going to feel differently about it, but I can tell you, like, initially I was like a little bothered by it. I'd just be like, I don't really necessarily want to post these videos, but after a while, when you get to know these guys who you're working out with, it's like, this is my way of showing my support to them.
I agree. I get that completely. Mo, you've been a great guest. Thanks for doing the pod, and I'll keep you updated on the woman in the backseat.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you very much. The woman in the backseat.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the JJ Redick podcast. As always, I really appreciate you guys listening. Please hit me up on Twitter at JJ Redick with any questions or comments. I asked for some questions and comments on the pod this week. Please feel free to reach out. I'll try to get back to you with any answers and feedback. And if anyone can track down the driver, I would really appreciate it. Until next time, signing out.